Yesterday we discussed experimental observation that cannot be explained three quantum numbers. So we introduced fourth quantum number, which is called spin quantum number. The experiment following. Today we are going to discuss sodium doublet structure and anomalous Zeeman effect. The number of elements which are in given period is equal to n squared times 2. To explain Stern-Zella experiment, we must introduce fourth quantum number, which is called spin angular momentum quantum number. And it turns out that the spin quantum number must be 1/2. For MS, corresponding MS quantum number has two values, 1/2 or minus 1/2. So only two steps is possible. So with this introduction, we can explain Stern-Zella experiment. Today we are going to discuss doublet and anomalous Zeeman effect. So without spin, the energy level of atomic system looks like this. Three p levels are degenerate, so they have all the same energy. So the transition from 2p to 1s, three transitions are allowed, but the energy level is the same. We observe only single peak. This is without magnetic field. But when you apply magnetic field, the p orbital split it into three distinct energy levels. But the 1s level does not change because 1s orbital does not have angular momentum, so 1s orbital does not respond to magnetic field. But the p orbital has angular momentum, so there are three different directions. So the p orbital split into three levels. So the transition looks like this. So this peak split it into triplet. This is the prediction based on the assumption that wave function depends on only three quantum numbers. But according to actual experimental observation, the peak is already split into doublet. This is actual experimental result. When we apply magnetic field, this peak split it into 4 peaks, and this peak split it into 6 peaks. So this is the actual experimental observation. So this phenomenon is called doublet. This phenomenon, in its peak is split very complicated, is called anomalous Zeeman effect. Now explain these two phenomena, we are going to introduce spin quantum number. Okay, first take a look at the doublet structure. With only three quantum numbers, p orbitals are degenerate, but according to actual experiment, we observe two peaks. It means that 2p orbital is not degenerate. It is already split into two levels. So we observe two peaks. We don't know yet why 2p orbitals are split, but according to experimental observation, we obtain two peak doublet. It means that 2p orbital is split already without magnetic field. The question is why 2p orbitals are split? This is the question. Now electrons in the 2p level has angular momentum. the angular momentum quantum number L. So this is the orbital angular momentum. And to explain this observation, we are going to introduce new type of angular momentum, which is spin angular momentum. When you explain Stonzella experiment, the spin angular momentum quantum number is equal to 1 over 2, and the possible value of ns is 1 over 2 and minus 1 over 2. This is called upspin and downspin. So there are two orientation is possible for spin angular momentum. Now, this is orbital angular momentum, and I'm going to draw spin angular momentum here, but the spin angular momentum has two directions. So we can consider two possibilities. First possibility is that spin angular momentum are parallel to orbital angular momentum. And second possibility is that spin angular momentum is anti-parallel to orbital angular momentum because spin has two directions. Now, electron is a charged particle. When the electron has angular momentum, the electron rotates about some given axis. So electron with angular momentum generate magnetic field. So electron behaves like a magnet. But in this case, two magnets are parallel when the orbital angular momentum and spin angular momentum are parallel. But in this case, two magnets are anti-parallel. So in this case, two magnets feels repulsive force, so energy is up. But in this case, two magnets anti-parallel, so attractive force are operative, so energy down. So this state corresponds to this one. In its orbital angular momentum and spin angular momentum are parallel, the energy is up. This lower state corresponds to this situation in its orbital angular momentum are anti-parallel with spin angular momentum. So we can explain why p orbital are split because of spin angular momentum. Now, electrons has two type of angular momentum, orbital angular momentum and spin angular momentum. So I'm going to introduce new angular momentum, which is called J. This is orbital angular momentum. This is spin angular momentum. J is called total angular momentum. The spin quantum number of L is called 1. Quantum number for L is 1. Spin angular momentum quantum number is 1 over 2. The question is then what is the total angular momentum quantum number? In this case, two angular momentum are parallel, so two vector add up. So quantum number for this state is 3 over 2, which is 1 plus 1 over 2. This state is the state with quantum number J equal 3 over 2 because two angular momentum are parallel, add up to each other. But this state is anti-parallel, so it cancels each other. So in this case, spin quantum number is 1 minus 1 over 2, which is 1 over 2. Now, this state also has total angular momentum quantum number J. As I said previous, J equal L plus S, but this is S orbital. So L equal 0, right? So in this case, J equal S. S is equal 1 over 2. So this state is J equal 1 over 2 state. This state is equal J equal 3 over 2 state. Now I'm going to apply magnetic field here. Then this state split into 4 levels. And this state split into 2 levels. This state also split into 4 level. Why? The question is why. But this situation is exactly analogous to how p orbitals split into 3 levels here. As we discussed yesterday, without spin, this is the p orbital. Without magnetic field, all 3 states have same energy, but when I operate magnetic field, so energy level split according to magnetic quantum numbers, right? So for given L, there are 3 states exist for L equal 1 state. Now, how about this state? For this state, J equal 3 over 2. Given J, we can define MJ quantum number. This state, this MJ can take 4 values, 3 over 2, 3 over 1, 1 over 2, and minus 1 over 2, minus 3 over 2. When J equals 3, MJ can take only 4 values, 3 over 2, 1 over 2, minus 1 over 2, minus 3 over 2. 4 states are possible for J equals 3 over 2 state. So when you apply magnetic field, this 4 state is split. How about this state, J equal 1 over 2 state? When J equal 1 over 2, MJ can take only 2 values, 1 over 2 and minus 1 over 2. So this state has only 2 states. So this state is same. Now, this transition from this state to this state, we observe 4 peaks. So we obtain very complicated patterns. Similarly, from this state to this state, we observe total of 6 peaks appear. So we observe very complicated pattern appears. This phenomenon is called anomalous Zeeman effect. Anyway, we can explain this experimental observation with the introduction of spin angular momentum. So, following the discovery that electron has spin quantum number, extensive research was conducted regarding the spin quantum number of other particles. So, according to the research, particles are classified into 2 categories. First category include particles with a spin quantum number half integer, 1 over 2, 3 over 2, blah 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 blah. Representative example of this particle is electron and proton. Electron and proton have spin quantum number 1 over 2. These particles, which have spin quantum number half integer, is called fermion. And the second category particles include the spin quantum number with integer. Spin quantum number 1, 2, blah 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 blah. Representative example for spin quantum number 1 is photon. Photon has spin angular momentum quantum number 1. Electron 1 over 2. These particles are called boson. And 0 is also integer. So some particles have spin angular momentum 0. It means that the particle does not have spin. Representative example of spin quantum number 0 is carbon 12, oxygen 16. This nuclide has no spin. So I'm going to talk about the NMR spectroscopy. In NMR spectroscopy, this carbon atom does not show NMR signal because carbon atom does not have spin quantum number. So, as you know, the Pauli exclusion principle only applies to fermion. The Pauli exclusion principle does not apply boson. Exclusively apply to fermion. So, given orbital, 2 electrons can occupy the spatial orbital. So, we can explain why factor of 2 appears in front of n square. Because electron is fermion, so only 2 electrons can occupy spatial orbital. So, in this way, we can explain this experimental observation with the introduction of spin quantum. Now, at this moment, Dirac appears. He come up with Dirac equation. Dirac come up with Dirac's equation. You know Schrödinger equation. Dirac equations are derived by incorporating special relativity to Schrödinger equation. He combined Schrödinger equation with special relativity to introduce his Dirac's equation. When he solved Schrödinger equation, only 3 quantum number emerged. But when he solved Dirac's equation, which incorporates special relativity, spin quantum number naturally appears, as well as 3 quantum number. And when you solve Dirac's equation, it turns out that this spin quantum number has possible value, 1 over 2 and minus 1 over 2. So first finding is that spin quantum number is 1. He has 2 profile achievement. First achievement is this one. When you solve Dirac's equation, particle has spin angular momentum, and the spin angular momentum quantum number is 1 over 2, which we already know. Second finding is that, according to his Dirac's equation, he predicted that antimatter exists. This is the 2 achievement by Dirac's equation. The representative example of antimatter is positron. Positron is the antimatter of electron. The positron has same mass with electron and same spin quantum number. It is same with electron. Only difference is that electron carries negative charge, but positron carry positive charge. This is the only difference between electron and positron. But he predicted this kind of particle exists. So after several years later, experimentally, this method confirmed. So he received Nobel Prize. Now let's move on to multi-electron system. To keep it simple, consider atom with 1 nucleus and 2 electrons. Now, to represent the quantum mechanical state of 2 electrons, the wave function is a function of 6 variables. To represent the atom with the 2 electrons, the wave function takes this form. In its 6 independent variables is needed. So this is the coordinate of electron 1. This is the coordinate of electron 2. So I'm going to combine these 3 coordinates to R1. This is R2. So to keep it simple, I'm gonna represent the wave function for two electron system as R1, R2, right? So R1 means the coordinate x1, y1, g1, and R2 means that coordinate of electron 2, x2, y2, g2. Now, to solve this wave function, first I'm gonna assume that this function can be expressed as a product of two functions, psi 1, r1, psi 2, r2. I'm going to assume that this function can be expressed as a product of two functions. But important point is that this is just an approximation. When I talk about two-dimensional particle box, here, the wave function takes this form, psi xy, and we assume that this wave function can be expressed as a product of two functions. You might think this is a similar situation, but it's different. In this case, it is equal. But in this case, it is approximation. Why? Because in this case, variable x and variable y is independent. They don't interact with each other because electron is in the empty space. So variable x and y are independent. They don't interact with each other. So expressing wave function this way is not an approximation. But how about this situation? R1 represents the coordinate of electron 1, R2 represents coordinate of x2, but these two electrons interact with each other through electrostatic interaction. So expressing wave function in this way is not an exact, it is just an approximation. This kind of approximation is called orbital approximation. Because when the wave function can be expressed this way, we can say that electron 1 occupies psi 1 orbital, electron 2 occupies psi 2 orbital. We can say that if this wave function can be expressed in this way. So this approximation is called orbital approximation. But this is an approximation because R1 and R2 is not independent. This is dependent. So this isn't just an approximation. Now our task is that with this orbital approximation, our task is to determine psi 1 and psi 2. Now then, how to solve psi 1 and psi 2? We are going to set up Schrödinger equation for psi 1 and psi 2. The Schrödinger equation looks like this. Which are familiar form. Right. The Schrödinger equation for the first wave function looks like this. Schrödinger equation for the second wave function looks similar. This is the Schrödinger equation for the wave function. At the first glance, you might think that these two equations are independent because when you take a look at the first equation, only variable 1 is involved. When you take a look at the second equation, only variable 2 is involved. So you might think that these two equations are independent. It is not coupled. But actually, these two equations is coupled. y. Now I'm gonna solve psi 1. To solve psi 1, we need to solve this Schrödinger equation. But to solve this Schrödinger equation, you must know the V1. V1 is the potential experienced by electron 1. Understand? To solve this Schrödinger equation, in first step, you must know the V1, which is potential experienced by electron 1. The V1 consists of two components. This is electron 1. The potential experienced by electron 1 are composed of two components. First one is this one. Attractive potential between electrons and nucleus. And second component is this one. Repulsive potential between two electrons. This is V22. But for V1 NE, G is fixed at the origin, right? But how about this one? To know the repulsive potential, you must know the spatial distribution of second electron. To calculate VEE. To know the spatial distribution of second electron, you must know which orbital these electrons occupy. So, to solve psi 1, you must already know the orbital two electrons occupy. So, we should already know psi 2, right? So to this equation, you must know the information on psi 2. So this equation actually coupled, okay? So we can solve this equation analytically. We have no choice but to solve this equation numerically using computer. So strategy is this. In first step, I'm gonna make a guess. Electron 1 occupies psi 1 0. Electron 2 occupy psi 2 0. This is gas. And to solve, in first step, to solve psi 1, I'm going to solve this Schrödinger equation. To solve this Schrödinger equation, we must know V1. To know V1, we should know psi 2, right? Because to know V22, we know the spatial distribution of electron 2. So electron 2 occupy this orbital, right? So with this information, put into this one. So we can set up Schrödinger equation and we can solve for psi 1. The solution to this Schrödinger equation is called psi 1, 1. Okay. This one comes from psi 2, 0. Now I'm going to solve psi 2. To solve this equation, we are going to solve this equation. For set up this equation, we must know V2, which is potential energy experienced by electron 2. To know the potential V2, we should know which orbital electron 1 occupy. But we just calculate the orbital the electron 1 occupies this one. So with this information, put into V2. So we can solve this equation. The solution to this equation is psi 2, 1. Right? But this one is different from this one. This function are calculated based on the assumption that electron 2 occupies this orbital. But this one is updated by this one. So we must calculate again. With this orbital, put into this one. And we calculate this Schrödinger equation again. So the solution to this Schrödinger equation is psi 1, 2. Now this one is updated again. But this one was calculated based on the assumption that electron 1 are occupied by this orbital. But this orbital updated again. So this one put again that. So we observed another solution. In this way, we continue to calculate put psi 1, put psi 2 again and again. This process is called iteration. So in some point, you compare this set of function with this set of function. Compare. So in some times, these two sets are not different, so very, very small. Then we stop the calculation. So we accept this is the solution. So with this process, we obtain this wave function using computer. Now I'm going to introduce another approximation. Now to calculate this V1, actually this potential function are function of R theta phi. Generally, the function experienced by electron 1 are function of R theta phi. But I'm going to introduce another approximation that the function is spherically symmetric. It means that the function is only function of R. We assume that function is spherically symmetric. It means that the function only depends on R, not theta and phi. We are going to introduce this approximation. So this function is expressed like this. Simply put, this function has this form. So G effective, this parameter encapsulates all the information regarding electron repulsion. With this parameter, all the information are encapsulated to effective nuclear charge regarding electron repulsion. So this is very, very important in multi-electron system. Now, I will compare the energy level of atom single electron atom with multi-electron atom. As you know, for single electron atom, orbital energy is fixed. It is constant. It does not change. But for multi-electron atom, this orbital depends on the electronic configuration. The orbital energy is dynamic. It is not fixed. It goes up and down depending on the electronic configuration. Why? For single electron atom, the orbital energy are composed of only two terms. Kinetic energy included and potential energy between electron and nucleus is included. For single electron atom, the orbital energy consists of only two terms. How about this term? The orbital energy also contains kinetic energy and potential energy due to attractive potential, plus for multi-electron atom, this term is also included. For multi-electron atom. So, how do you obtain this orbital energy? E2p. When you solve this equation, you obtain orbital energy. This orbital energy comes from solving this Schrödinger equation. But here, the orbital energy includes potential energy. This potential energy consists of two terms: nuclear attraction, electron repulsion. So, in this orbital energy, this term is included in the orbital energy. But as I said before, this term depends on this which orbital this electron occupy. So when the orbital this electron occupy is different, then this one term different, so energy also change. So I want to stress that in multi-electron atom, the orbital energy depends on electronic configuration. Okay, this is the multi-electron atom. And finally, so effective nuclear charge is a very important concept in multi-electron atom. In your textbook, for carbon atom, effective nuclear charge of carbon atom is displayed. So when you look at the table, the effective nuclear charge of 1s orbital is 5.67. So this value is very close to actual nuclear charge because the 1s orbital has a higher probability that of being found near nucleus. So there are no electrons between 1s electrons and nuclear charges. So the effective nuclear charge is very close to actual nuclear charge, and the effective nuclear charge for 2s is 3.22, 3p 3.14. For nuclear charge for 2s2 and 2p drop significantly from 5.67. Why? Because of the shielding effect of this electron. This 1s electron shield nuclear charge. So the effective nuclear charge drops significantly because of this shielding effect. And finally, even though 2s orbital, 2p orbital share same principal quantum number n equal to, the effective nuclear charge of 2s is slightly larger than the effective nuclear charge 2p. Why? When we discussed yesterday, I drew radial distribution function 3s, and when you draw radial distribution function, there are two differences for 3s orbital. This is a radial distribution function. So first difference is that the number of nodes is different. There are two nodes for 3p orbital, number of nodes 1. But the most important point is that the function value at r equals 0 is non-zero for 3s orbital. But function value at r equals 0 for 3p orbital is 0. It means that the probability being found near nucleus for 3s orbital is higher than the probability being found near nucleus 3p. So 3s orbital has high penetration effect into the nucleus. So it is more attractive nuclear charge. So the effective nuclear charge for s orbital is larger than 3p orbital. So as you can see, nuclear charge, effective nuclear charge is larger for 2s orbital. So remember 3 points. The nuclear charge for 1s orbital is much higher than effective nuclear charge n equal to state. Second point is that this nuclear charge is different. 2s orbital is slightly larger than the second. Okay. Do you have to take this one? Okay. I'm gonna calculate the effective nuclear charge of transition metal iron. I'm going to calculate the effective nuclear charge of 4s2 electron, 3d6 electron, and 3s2, 3p6 electron. The nuclear charge of iron is 26. So iron 26. So 1s2, 2s2 p6, 3s2 3p6, 3d 4s. Now I'm going to use Slater formula, experimental formula, to determine the effective nuclear charge of each different subshell. Now, first, I'm going to calculate the effective nuclear charge in 4s2 orbital. If there are no electrons inside inner shell, the nuclear charge, the electron experience is exactly equal to actual nuclear charge. But this, due to this inner shell electrons, the electron feels much less nuclear charge. So, effective nuclear charge can be calculated using this formula. This is the actual nuclear charge. This is a shielding constant. Shielding constant due to the fact that the electrons inner shell shield the nuclear charge. But shielding efficiency is different. The shielding efficiency of the innermost shell is very, very high, actually 1. But the shielding efficiency due to this electron is very, very small. When you go down, shielding efficiency increase. You go up, shielding efficiency become smaller. Okay. According to Slater rule, the shielding efficiency on the same subcell is 100%. This is the rule. And the next level, this one, shielding efficiency is 85%. And the remaining inner shell, shielding efficiency is 100%. So I'm going to calculate sigma for the 4s2 orbital. So 4s2 orbital. Now the shielding efficiency is, I'm sorry, this is not 100%, 35%. Shielding efficiency must be lower because it is in the same level. So for 4s2 orbital, the shielding efficiency is 35%, so 0.35. How many electrons in the same subset? Only one, excluding itself. 1. And how many electrons in the n equal 3 level? 6, 6, 2. 14 electrons in this level. The shielding efficiency is 85%. And the remaining electrons, for the remaining electrons, shielding efficiency is 100%, a total of 10 electrons. So when you calculate this value, it is equal to 22.25. This is 22.25. This is 26. So effective nuclear charge is equal to 3.75. Okay. Now move on to this one. In this case, the electrons outside outer shell does not contribute to shielding. Okay, so we only account for these electrons. Then how many electrons in the same subcell? 7, because excluding itself. So in this case, the shielding efficiency of this level is now 35%. Shielding efficiency for this level is 85%. Shielding efficiency for 1s orbital is 100%. So the number of electrons in the same subcell is 7. And the shielding efficiency is 0.35. And how many electrons? 8 electrons. And the shielding efficiency is A prime. And for this electron, shielding efficiency is 100%. 2. So when you calculate this formula, it is equal to 11.25. In this way, you can calculate effective nuclear charge. Now, this one, 3d6. For 3d6, 3d orbital is here. I categorize 3d orbital different from this one. I separate 3s3p orbital from 3d orbital. Now, for the calculation for effective nuclear charge for 3d orbital, the electrons in the same level, the shielding efficiency is 35%, and remaining electrons, for the remaining electrons, the shielding efficiency is 100%. It is very simple. When you calculate the 3d orbital, it is very, very simple. The electrons in the same shell contribute 35%, and the remaining electrons inside the shell contribute 100%. It's very, very simple. I will explain the reason why. So how many electrons? 5 electrons. And when you add up all the electrons, it is 18. So in this way, you can calculate the effective nuclear charge. But the question is, why they are treated differently, right? The way effective nuclear charge calculation is different. 3s to 3d different. Why? Because the shape is different. 3s and 3p orbital has high penetration power. The electrons in the 3s or 3p orbitals high penetration power. So the shielding constant is relatively high, but has 3d orbital has the shape is very diffuse and has weak penetration power. So 3d electrons only reside outside the electron cloud. There are no chance to penetrate into the nucleus. So all the electrons shield perfectly this nucleus when it comes to 3d orbital. So the for the 3d orbital, the shielding constant is 100% inside the inner shell. Okay, so this is effective nuclear charge. Do you have a question now? Okay, see you next time.